Hey folks, it has been a really long time since I posted a video. I know I have moved since my last one. I've had so much going on. I have so many projects, half finished, sort of built. It's just been nuts. But I wanted to work on one for like my next coming back video that's really been on my mind for a long time. I've been working on kind of revamping my whole 40K army with the 8th edition. One of the things that I've really wanted to add has been a Stormblade. It's been one of my favorite models for a long time, and I put off buying it originally because of how expensive it was from Forge World. And then, from what I understand, their molds broke, and they stopped producing them, and now they're almost impossible to find. I thought I found one on eBay. Turns out it was really just somebody kind of put some stuff together, and it was not a very good representation of what a Stormblade was supposed to be anyway. It was basically... it was a Shadowsword with a really bad plasma cannon stuck in it, and it was not at all accurate to what it was. But it gave me the idea that, yeah, I think I can work on a conversion based on a standard old Shadowsword. Most of what we need is in the Baneblade / Shadowsword kit. I've got some random other accessories from eBay that I was able to scrounge from an actual Forge World kit that we're going to be using. We're going to incorporate some moldings and castings from the Stormhammer that I'm in the middle of working on right now. We've got Peta Kitty Cat with us today, helping us out. And then, kind of as the center of our weapon system here, Peta, come on, stay away from the armor. We've got a Mars Warhound Titan Plasma Blast Cannon from Forge World. We're gonna modify this for the main weapon for this beast. So basically, I'm gonna take this project, might have to do some scratch building and some kit bashing as best I can to replicate what comes in the actual kit. When it's all said and done, hopefully we'll have a really good, as close as we can, representation to what a real Stormblade would look like without being able to get our hands on the actual kit. So I think this is gonna be a fun project. So I've got Rick and Morty on in the background just to have something entertaining for me to listen to as I go through the basic build of the hull, the chassis of the Shadowsword that we're going to base this all off of. Here are the basic pictures that I got online of the Stormblade that I'm working from, so you can see the references I'm using. All of these images here just come from simple Google searches, either 40K Stormblade, Warhammer Stormblade, and I had to filter through a lot of just crap results, either things that had nothing to do with it, or actual Warhammer results but the wrong vehicle, or just some of them were the right thing but they were crazy mods to whatever it was. So the first 5 images are what I consider the purest, the most unaltered, best resources. They're from an eBay listing for a new unfinished Stormblade. So those are the primary references for what I need to make it look like. The rest are finished, complete kits, painted and everything. Some of them have modifications, but I'm still using them as references for some of the little details like the track guards, the way the cannon's mounted, some of the little details we need to make on the... And so now I'm going to go to work just doing the basic build up here. And then we'll start the really fun part of making molds, making resin pieces, seeing what we have to do to, cut and kit bash and get this thing rolling out so we have a really good working Stormblade to play in the next game. In order to use these, we're going to have to strip all the paint and get it down back to the bare resin. So we know we can use brake fluid for that. That's kind of a tried and true method. I saw this on the 99-cent shelf. I wanted to give it a try. I don't know if it's going to work or not, but we're gonna give it a shot. So as I start building, we're gonna soak these things in some little Tupperware containers. I'm gonna put them in 2 separate containers, and we're just gonna see if we can get this stuff to work well. We'll give it, overnight and see if there's any effect. Boy, it smells orangey. Make sure we cover everything nicely. And then we'll just use the old .3 brake fluid on the rear plate. And now we have Tato the dog chiming in too. I've got a bunch assembled. The basis of the hull, anyway. These are all kit parts from the original Baneblade slash Shadowsword, you know, whatever you want to call it, that we would be using, even if we did have the real-life Stormblade kit. As a side note, the pieces I put in the orange cleaner did nothing overnight. So I ended up transferring them into the bucket with the brake fluid, and as you can see, it's turning a gross color, and I did a quick scrub on some of the pieces from that back plate, and that paint's coming off. I'm giving them another soak. You can't really tell, but it's working really nicely to get the paint off. But lots of conversion work going on right here at the nose of the vehicle. So I printed up kind of a blown up reference photo to look at the area and the pieces that we actually want to do. These are different from the standard build for either the Baneblade or the Shadowsword using the kit parts. And in this picture you can tell the dark gray are plastic pieces from the original kit, and the light ones are the resin pieces that would come in the Stormblade kit. This front plate kind of matches what would be on the Baneblade. This over here fits more the pieces that would be on the Shadowsword. Now unfortunately those are two separate parts that don't normally go together. What I ended up doing was, oh, and then, you know, this front deck plate, well, let's take a look. So this piece is used with the Baneblade construction, and then the whole upper part, we'll take a look here, this superstructure and everything, that's all one piece, and that connects right there. This part normally comes all together for use with the Shadowsword. This is one piece. So what I first had to do was cut this bottom part off because we're not using it. Then I had to shave down with a razor saw some of the material so that we could fit that in where it goes to give us the approximate look to match this picture. Now there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. You see the details are not going to match. I don't want the details to match perfectly because we're not trying to fool the world into saying we bought a Stormblade kit. The whole point is so that people kind of know I put the time and the effort into converting my Shadowsword into the Stormblade since you can't get it anymore. So I don't want it to be a one-for-one, but I want it to be as close as possible. So if you take a look at some of the details over here, these pieces match pretty well. There's one built-up armor plate over there. I think I'm just going to leave it alone. I'm not going to mess with it. Over here, I mounted the driver's window over there. Now it's a little different mounting on this one, so I'm going to leave it though. I am going to shave this off, and I'm going to recreate, just out of some plastic pieces, this plate. I'm going to take a mold of these large rivets, because as I was looking around, those rivets look like they would match the size that go there, and I'll walk you through how I'm going to do that. So I'm going to put that plate there, put those rivets. Then to make this look a little closer, and we've got most of the pieces there already, so we've got this little round guy, slightly different connection. I think that's good enough, we'll leave it alone. We've got this piece that goes over there, but we have these two raised panels. I'm going to take a low grit, low speed Dremel session there, so about 60 grit at low speed to grind off as much of that as I can while leaving the rivet details. Then I'll fill in whatever's left over there with putty, sand it smooth, and then I'm sure I've got spare parts in my bits box to make that. I don't know if I'm going to make that little splash guard over there. I haven't decided yet, but it'll look close, but not 100%. I also, if you take a look at the fit here, I need to do a little filling right around there and sanding. I might use just regular model putty, or I don't know if I'll use green stuff to fill in those gaps, but it shouldn't be that big a deal. But it's definitely coming together, and it's just, you know, it's work, that's all. Just test fitting, trial and error, seeing what works and how we get those pieces to fit together the right way. Making progress. So I used perfect plastic putty once I sanded down here to fill in any gaps, and it's rough now, but I'll sand it down, and also used it to fill in this little chunk right here that I'll sand down to make that all nice and flat. Still have some other work to figure out around there. I've got some thin plastic strip that I'll use to replicate that little rounded off area on the front of that deck when I'm ready for it. Right now though, I need to start doing some molding to recreate some rivets and to make some track guards or fender pieces kind of on the front and back. And I was looking at the original. If you look back at the pictures of the original, they're kind of unique, and there's not a lot of pieces that can directly replicate that in any other kit. But I had some ideas. So these are the back guards from a Macarius tank from Forge World. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to tack them together, and then I will end up making a mold of this, making pieces, and then I'll cut them kind of in line with these brackets here so they're straight, and then trim the sides. And you've got to get kind of a sense for it. There'll be the front pieces there, because the front ones on the original are a little smaller than the rear ones. These are from the Stormhammer, and they're cool because they've got these cutouts, so they just sort of sit on right there on the Stormhammer, and they're really nice. But they're a little too big for the front of the Stormblade. Yeah, so all these names blend together in my head. So I think what I'm going to do is make mold and then cast these pieces and then cut, and then I'll actually, it'll be at this angle, but of course it won't be mounted like that. They'll be mounted a little bit lower, but that will kind of replicate pretty well the rear piece, the rear guard that comes on the original kit. And that'll be very easy for me to do, and I'll have those pieces pretty simple. Now when it comes for making the molds I need, I've got some options. So I forgot the name of this, but I'll put a link to this. You can get this on Amazon. It's pretty cheap in the video description. And this is just like a waxy material. You put it in hot water and it becomes very malleable and very soft, and it cools and hardens pretty quickly. This is what I use when I want to make like not a 3D piece. So like I might use this mainly when I want to use green stuff to make just like a simple, like a surface mold, like when I want to do rivets. You can put it against something, it takes the shape very well. But for 3D pieces, it's a little more complicated. And to cast them, I like to use Alumilite resin. It's great stuff if you haven't used it. Very simple. It's your standard kind of part A, part B. It's very low odor compared to a lot of stuff out there. Very lightweight. Very easy to work with. Alumilite also makes this really easy to use mold putty. Part A, part B, and it makes silicone rubber mold. So it's very easy for when you've got these 3D parts, mix it up, put one side. It cures very, very quickly. I mean, matter of minutes it cures, and then you can just put a little Vaseline or some kind of other petroleum oil, you know, to keep them from sticking, and then make your top part, and then you've got a 3D mold ready to fill with your casting material. Good to go. You can use it with green stuff. Worked great with green stuff. It also works really well with the Alumilite that I like to use. Stuff is just super easy to use. It's very soft, easy to mix. Clean hands helps. And it's always my theory that it's better to use more material than less, have more extra on the edges, you know, thicker cast than a thinner one, and just press everything into place. Alright, so now we just sit and let this thing set up. While I wait for that to set all up, here is a little cup. It's just boiling water. Not quite boiling, but pretty damn hot. And we'll let this soak in there. I'm going to separate that into two smaller pieces so that I can get some impressions of two different areas. So I'll use this first one right here for these rivets. And then I'll take this other one and we'll use it to get some different sized rivets. And get those rivets right there. And then we will get an impression of this little area right here for some slightly larger rivets, and I have an idea of what we can do with this piece overall as well. This cools down very quickly, and the heat involved really doesn't do any damage at all to the plastic, doesn't even affect it. There you go. Now, I've got some extra stuff too, details on there, but whatever. I can use green stuff in there and make perfect little rivets that I can then attach to whatever I want. And then I've got these sized rivets as well. And then I can shape this entire plate here to go onto an area where I need one. So cool. It's all working out great. And this stuff, by the way, once you're done, you just heat it up again and reuse it. You use this stuff over and over and over.